If you've ever tried calorie tracking and abandoned it because it felt like a part-time job, you've probably wondered if there's a smarter way to manage your weight. And it all comes down to how you use it. Hi, I'm Ruth, and in this video I'll run through why long-term calorie tracking fails and take you through a simple 3-step process to use instead. One that gives you a way of eating that you can actually stick to. Now, for some women, long-term tracking genuinely works, and if you're one of them, then that's great. But for many, it creates a relationship with food that can become problematic. Some of my clients love the structure and keep it up for years, but others find it a slippery slope. Daily logging can tip them into a dieting mentality that's tough to shake and follows them into pretty much every meal. And for women with a history of yo-yo dieting, this focus on numbers is triggering. Not to mention the practical reality, logging every meal, weighing everything and recalculating when you eat out. It's all time consuming and, well, a bit boring. So if long-term tracking becomes a grind, or if it changes how you feel about food, then it might be costing you a bit more than it's giving you. But there's another problem. The numbers are often wrong from the start. So the gap between what you think you're eating and what you're actually eating is bigger than you realise. And there are 3 problems. Firstly, research shows that we're not very good at estimating what we eat. We consistently underestimate our calorie intake, and this is even more pronounced in people who have ever lived with obesity. We forget things: the oil on the salad, the sneaky teaspoon of peanut butter, the slice of cheese you share with the dog because he's so damn cute. Or we guess rather than weigh because weighing is a pain. Secondly, we overestimate how many calories we burn through exercise, particularly if we rely on fitness trackers. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings, but the research shows that they're not accurate at estimating the amount of energy we burn. So take the numbers with a large pinch of salt. And thirdly, when we track, we rely on food labels, but legally these can be out by up to 20%. So that 500 calories could be 400 or 600, who knows. Tracking feels precise, but the numbers it gives you often aren't. So holding ourselves to account or making decisions based on flawed data is where we can get stuck. But that doesn't mean tracking is completely useless. Far from it. When, in fact, it's used the right way, it can be pretty valuable. So let's run through my 3-step process. And just to say, if at any point the numbers do feel like they're too much, then jump ahead to the section called Food Imbalance. If you're happy to stick with me, let's start with step 1, find your numbers. Before you track anything, it helps to get an accurate baseline, specifically your approximate daily energy and protein needs. I've made a handy calculator that will do this for you, and it takes seconds to fill in. The link is in the description below. You simply pop in your stats, give it your goal, and it will give you the approximate number of calories and amount of protein you need to eat each day. Please be accurate with your activity level, because if you are exercising a lot, you need to eat enough to fuel your body. And protein, well, that really matters for muscle maintenance after menopause. Try saying that 10 times in a row. Let's use me as an example. I'm female, 51, 178 centimetres tall and 67 kilograms. So there is a toggle to switch to imperial measurements, by the way. I'm moderately active and my goal is to maintain my current weight because I'm trying to build some muscle. So the calculator says I need to eat around 2,118 calories a day. Of course, there will always be some individual variation, and between 80 and 107 grams of protein. In terms of the goals, I've suggested a modest 15% reduction for fat loss because slow and steady really does win the race, and added a plus 10% option if you are really going for it on the muscle building front, because not everyone has fat loss as a goal. So give it a go, and then you'll have your numbers as a starting point, which is the difference between guessing and knowing. It's now time for step 2 and increasing your awareness. How do you actually eat? And the good news is you don't need to track forever. A few days will do. You're going to keep a 3-day food diary. You can go longer if you want, but I wouldn't recommend more than a week. Here's the important bits. Pick 2 weekdays and a weekend day as a minimum. Eat how you normally eat. Don't change just because you're logging it. The diary is for you, so be honest with yourself. Log everything, and I mean everything, including the oil you cook with and the salad dressing. Be as accurate as you can, weigh things if you like. I recommend using one of the logging apps for this. Chronometer is my preferred option. No, I'm not sponsored. The free version is comprehensive and it's got a barcode scanner. When you're done, reflect. Are you eating less than you thought or more? What about some of your favourite meals? Are they more calorie dense than you expected? Have a look at your protein intake. Are you in the range suggested by the calculator? What about calcium? The British Menopause Society suggests 1,000 milligrams a day. And fibre, are you near the 30 grams a day target? Make like a scientist and get curious about what you eat and what the gap is between your predicted numbers and your reality. And the joy of this fact-finding mission is you can repeat it as often as you like. Once every 6 months, once a year, whenever the data will help. So now you've hopefully found some interesting patterns. What about step 3? How to eat in the long term if you don't want to log everything that passes your lips. What you need to do is get a little balance, and there are 2 aspects to this. Balance your plate and balance your life. So firstly, balance your plate. Imagine your plate and divide it into 2, then 1/2 into 2 again. You want to fill up half of your plate with non-starchy veg. Think green veg, salad leaves, bell peppers, tomatoes. Try and get as many different colours in as you can. If you want to keep it even more simple, it's about 2 cupped hands full of veggies. Next, fill a quarter of your plate with protein. Meat, fish, tofu. Aim for a piece about the size of your palm. And lastly, a quarter of complex carbs. Think high fibre whole grains like pearl barley, bulgur wheat, quinoa or freekeh, wholemeal or lentil pasta or edamame noodles, or starchy higher fibre veg like sweet potato or squash. In practical terms, a portion size is about the size of your fist, which is about 50 grams or 3 heaped tablespoons of uncooked grains. That doesn't sound like much, but remember it pretty much doubles in size when cooked in water. Obviously, you will need to adapt the portions for you. If you're in a bigger body or more active, then you might need more. Add a little healthy fat for taste and satisfaction. Some avocado, a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, a scattering of nuts and seeds, and you're done. Now there is of course some nuance here. If, like me, you love a sweeter breakfast, add fruit like berries, and frozen, yes, are just as nutritious, or apples instead of veg. And beans, pulses and legumes are effectively a mixture of complex carb and protein, so of course there will be some flexibility. And as mentioned, as postmenopausal women, we also need to think about calcium, so try to eat 2 to 3 portions of high calcium foods a day. If you start to build your meals like this and want to repeat the logging exercise, that can be really useful. And secondly, balance your life. Now, I make suggestions, not rules, but my suggestion is to try and eat this way 80 to 90% of the time. For the other 10 to 20%, make space for the foods you enjoy that aren't so nutritious. Doing this reduces the chances that we'll overeat them. Because if we feel like the diet starts on Monday and then we'll never eat cake again, we can overdo it. Eat with an 80-20 approach and you can stop when you're full because there's always going to be space for cake. So whether you started with your numbers and 3 days of tracking or skipped it entirely, this is how you eat well for life. And if you're wondering which foods will get you to that 1,000 milligrams of calcium target, watch this video next for the answers.